Hi guys, we are back for our fourth episode of our Mental Health Muscle United podcast. Hope everybody's well and been safe over the last week. We're delighted today, absolutely delighted to have JP with us as our special guest today for this version of getting to know a little bit more about JP. We've got a series of questions for him, and I know that some of you guys have put on the Instagram post some questions for him as well. So we're going to fire them at him at the end. But in the meantime, in the next 45 minutes or so, myself, the gaffer and the sec are going to fire some questions at JP to answer. So welcome, JP. How are you?
Very well, mate. Very well. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So tell us a little bit about you, JP, in a snapshot, quickly.
JP in a snapshot. All right. So I suppose most people will know me from either personal training at Winners or footballer who came down here to play for Torquay towards the end of my career. I'm a coach now over at Exeter City and also assistant coach to MB for the Mental Health United football squad. So, nice to give up some time to help the community, but also I'm still involved in my passion as well.
Amazing. Lovely. Thank you, mate. Yeah. Hi, Dan. Hi, Gaffer. How you doing? All right?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate.
Yeah, okay, cool. So what we're going to do then is we're going to fire some questions at JP, as I said, over the next 45 minutes. So, Gaffer, do you want to fire your first one at JP? Brace yourself, big man.
Yeah.
Go.
I'm just trying to remember them. The first one is quite a simple one. I guess you probably get asked this if you ever did any of these Q&As. You probably get asked this one the first. Who is the best strike partner that you had? As in, like, the best person you played up front with?
It's such a tough one. It is. I have heard that question before.
Yeah.
And I'll probably give a different answer every time. It depends how I'm feeling. But to be honest, there's been so many. It would be cruel to pick one out. But if I had to, if you were holding a gun to my head, I would say Matt Harrold at Wycombe.
Yeah.
He's if anyone doesn't know him, he's a Prince Harry lookalike.
Big ginger lad.
He's just a great player to play up front with because he was so unselfish. He would do all the dirty work, all the horrible stuff that probably it goes unnoticed. It's a bit of a thankless task as a striker. And then the ball would just seem to drop in front of me, and all I had to do is finish it.
Yeah,
and 9 times out of 10, I missed. But it's all right. It's all right. I got in the right positions.
Was that at Wycombe? Did you say?
That was at Wycombe, mate. Yeah, that was at Wycombe.
Didn't he play for Yeovil at some point?
Sorry?
Didn't Matt Harrold play for Yeovil at some point as well?
Yeah, I think he did, actually. I think he did. Yeah. He's been around the block. He's still playing now, actually.
Right.
But yeah, just a great guy to play up front with, very unselfish. So suited my game down to the ground.
Was that at Wycombe? That was under Gareth Ainsworth, wasn't
it? The first time it was under Peter Taylor.
Right. Yeah.
Peter Taylor bought me on transfer deadline day in January. Do you remember the year we had crazy snow? I don't know what it was like down here, but in the Midlands it was nuts. We had like a ridiculous amount of snow, so it kind of curtailed all the
that's cool.
All the transfers. So I ended up signing in the February because we couldn't get the deal done in the window.
Amazing.
Nice, cool. And did you have a friendship with Matt Harrold as well, or was it purely just on field liking for him?
It was a weird thing at Wycombe, right? Because of where it's situated, it's right on the edge of like Buckinghamshire, so it's pricey. And when you're League 2 or League 1 player, if you're not from the area, it's quite an upheaval to move to somewhere like that. That is so expensive. Yeah. And it's not. It was half an hour on the A1 outside London, so you've got those prices as well. So a lot of the players would commute. So we never really socialised away from football. Matt lived in he lived near Billericay, so Essex way, and there's a car school that used to come from that direction. There was some that used to come from Birmingham, some that would come from Reading. There was no one ever really mingled away from football, which is quite a testament to the group, really, because we didn't know a great deal about each other than our footballing strengths and weaknesses. But yeah, to be able to switch it on and off and come in on the Saturday and know what needs to be done and then go your separate ways and not see each other till the next training session, it's quite a skill, really.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and were you quite successful that year?
Yeah, we ended up getting promoted that year on the final day. I can't remember. I think it was on goal difference, automatic promotion on goal difference. It was great. But yeah, it's
Cool.
Matt Harold, I think, will probably.
So Matt Harold, we'll need to make sure we tag the shit out of him on Instagram after this. Yeah.
Definitely.
All right, cool, lovely. Thank you very much. Dan, first question, mate.
My first one, JP, is who was your idol as a footballer growing up?
My idol. So I'm a massive Liverpool fan. So I know lots of people will be switching off after hearing that. That's fine. But basically, I admired John Barnes anyway. You know, I just thought he was an unbelievable player. If he was playing now, he'd be worth 200 million. But back in the day, John Barnes was my idol, and I actually got to meet him. Horrible circumstances. A family member got sick, went to hospital, and sadly passed away. And he was due. My cousin was due to go and have a tour of the ground, and he would have met all the players and whatnot. They caught wind that he wouldn't have been coming under the circumstances and came to the funeral. So I met John Barnes and, you know, told him about, at the time I played for Aston Villa, I told him about myself and blah, blah. I was only about 11 or 12. And it was interesting because many, many years later, he was manager of Tranmere when I was at Wickham, and we played against them. And he remembered me. So that was
really?
Cool. I really appreciate that. That was awesome. So it kind of went full circle.
What did John Barnes have about him that made you his idol, that made him your idol?
It's interesting. They say you never meet your idols, right? But he was everything that I expected he would be. He talks at 1,000,000 miles an hour, so he's difficult to understand. But he just carries himself in such a way that you can't help but be in awe of him. Aside from what he does on the football pitch, so yeah, he's just a great guy. Really, you know, one of those people that you just admire.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. Who's your idol, Dan? Question back at you.
Stevie G.
Stevie
G, yeah. Legend.
Matty?
Absolutely.
That's a tough question. That is. I never thought I'd be answering questions like that. In football terms, I'd have to say, well, the person that made me fall, I've mentioned on the podcast before, the person that made me fall in love with the game was like R9, the original Ronaldo.
Yeah.
In terms of idols and stuff, obviously being a Tottenham fan, I think Ledley King, Glenn Hoddle, people like that. For me, it's a strange question. You just
always gets a Ledley in there, doesn't he? UE always gets
the Ledley.
Yeah. I want to hear yours, Aaron. Is yours Lee Hendry?
Mine, Lee Hendry. He's up there, mate. He's up there. I think for me, and being brutally honest, I've never really had a football idol because, as you all know, rugby really was my childhood sport. It was where I went in my sporting passion.
We're going to be turning off now.
Yeah, exactly. So I've never really had a football idol. So
what about in rugby, AC?
With rugby, it was always Johnny Wilkinson. Yeah. But you know, that's kind of my childhood with Johnny was with rugby really. So football's never been my sport to have an idol from. But if I had to choose anyone right now, it would probably be JG, Jack Grealish for sure. You know, he's younger than me, of course, but he's got everything, hasn't he? You know what I mean? If you want a young footballer coming through the ranks like Maxwell, for example, everybody wants to be Jack Grealish, man. He's a G. So I'll go with Jack. And I won't tag him because he won't thank me for it.
Mate, tag him.
So yeah, cool, lovely. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, JP. Okay, so my first question, JP, is who was your most hated and feared defender to come up against when you were playing up top?
Hated and feared defender. So first and foremost, I never hated any of my opponents. Because we're all there for the same thing. We all want to win, don't we? And anything that happened on the pitch, I remember Gavin Hoyt, Justin Hoyt's younger brother.
Oh yeah.
He was like my nemesis on a match day. You know, he'd get a red card. You know, elbows were flying everywhere. But as soon as the game was finished, it was done and dusted, right? So there was no carryover into the next game. So I never hated any of my opponents, but there's one game that sticks in my mind where I was, as they say, I was in the defender's pocket. He was 2 steps ahead of me. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't out sprint him. I couldn't out jump him. I tried a trick. He read it. You know, I tried everything, and it was the most frustrating game ever because I felt like I felt like I was being controlled by someone. I couldn't do what I wanted to do. And that was Jose Font, who played for Southampton at the time.
Jesus,
he was really good. Yeah, great player. And, you know, in my defence, I had a torrid that day, but he did go on to win the Euros with Portugal. So he was all right. You know what I mean?
We were talking the other day on our football chat, and it was that he's the only player to have won the Johnston's Paint Trophy and the Euros.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Who was he playing with when he was lower leagues? Who was he with before Southampton?
Southampton went all the way down, didn't they? They went down.
Yeah, they were in League One, weren't they?
They did. They went down to League One. But he kind of dotted around at some lowly clubs. Played, I don't know, a couple hundred games for Southampton, and then started to move on. I think he even went to China for a little bit. But
didn't he move to West Ham? He had like a 3-month stint at West Ham.
Yeah,
that was after Southampton, yeah.
But having said that, though, Aaron, like Jose Font, he gave me a footballing lesson. But you got to remember, every day in training when I was coming through at Nottingham Forest, you know, you'd come up against some great defenders. So it was Wes Morgan to start with when we were in the academy together. So, you know, he's kicking chunks out of me every day. That kind of hardens you and makes you a little bit more equipped. And then when I graduated to the first team, it was Wes Morgan and Michael Dawson. They were both kicking me. So it was difficult anyway. Yeah. Training was hard. So when you went into a game, you're thinking that they're not better than what I've just been playing against all week. So, yeah, it was kind of a gift and a curse in that sense.
Awesome. Top man. Cool. Lovely. Thanks, JP. Okay, Matty, second question.
Well, all my questions are from the bloody book of Q&A. What, if you hadn't been a footballer, what would you have been?
If I hadn't been a footballer, this is where it causes a little bit of conflict within myself, right? When I answer this question, because I would tell any young player now that your schoolwork is crucial. Paying attention in school, doing extra studies if you can, making sure that you tick those boxes and some. Education is super important. Having said that, when I was 8 and it started becoming a little bit real, I'd gone to Aston Villa and I'd been there for 3.5 years, and then I moved over to Nottingham Forest and kept going through the schoolboy forms, then started full time at 16. I didn't think of anything but being a footballer.
Yeah.
I didn't think of any, to the detriment of my studies, which is why I can say it now, because I'm having to study now, so it catches up with you eventually. But yes, I got to live my dream, but education's always going to be that thing that's that you need to have on board. So in answer to your question, mate, I didn't think of anything but football.
I can imagine that's quite, especially like of our kind of era, that's quite a common answer, I imagine. But like there is a fine line, isn't there, between you say to people like, education is important, you need to keep it going, but also devoting yourself to make it. You have to have a real sense of devotion, don't you?
Oh yeah, mate.
I'm not saying forget everything else, but like
yeah. If you only did the set amount of training hours that the club provide, you wouldn't make it.
No.
You had to go above and beyond and make sure that if everyone's doing 1,000 shots a week, do 2,000.
Yeah.
If everyone's doing their fitness work, stay behind and do an extra half an hour. It was that level. And actually, schools at the time, it's different now, but at the time, they would let you go early. You got day release so that you could go and do your vocation. And they didn't stand in your way. It's a little bit different now. You have to make sure all your schoolwork's up to date. Whereas when I was at school, it was like, well, you haven't finished that yet. Well, my bus is going now anyway, so I need to. All right, then see you tomorrow.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I'll ask a question a bit later actually, because it ties in with another one of MB's, I think. But we'll do that until then. Yeah, cool, lovely, thank you, Dan. Second question, brother.
Yeah, my second one is, what would you say is the biggest setback you had in your footballing career, and how did you recover from that?
Biggest setback? I guess, like, just to play devil's advocate, you wouldn't know, would you? You wouldn't know if it was a setback if you didn't have it. You know what I mean? Like, so basically, what I'm trying to say is, depending on how you approach things that happen, is basically what carries you forward, or where your character gains its muscle or its strength is going through those things. So I didn't always see things as a setback at the time. When I look back now, that I can see my whole career sort of in a linear way. Then I can pick out some setbacks. So I would say getting injured at 23, I was on a high at Wycombe. I was doing really well. We were in League One at the time, and we just got into League One, and did really well. And the season had gone on and on and on, and I'd started to drum up a little bit of hype, and people were starting to talk about me. And this game we played at home, I got injured in the warm-up, and it was a serious injury that kept me out for 5 or 6 months and required surgery. And it wasn't until maybe I was just on my return back to fitness, my agent had told me that Charlton Athletic were at that game, and they were going to make a bid, or they were thinking about making a bid in the next window, right? As soon as you get injured, they don't wait for you to get fit again and then start watching you again. You're gone, right? They'll find someone else. You know what I mean? So that was a big setback, because that would have meant that I was going to be, a massive club and looking up instead of, staying where I was. Aside from that, probably missing penalty at Wembley. I think 47,000 people there, high pressure situation, taking a million penalties in my lifetime, but nothing can prepare you for the stress that puts on you, in a playoff final. So that was a horrible situation as well, and definitely felt like a setback at the time. But as I said, looking back now, it depends how you look at it.
Was the penalty in 90 minutes, or was the penalty as a penalty shootout penalty?
No, it was a shootout. We were robbed. The referee should have sent Bristol Rovers goalie off, but he didn't. And as it happens, they subbed off their starting goalie for an absolute giant who just filled the goal, ready for extra time. We had one cleared off the line in extra time, and then it went to penalties. Now, we've been working on penalties for ages, and a few of the lads, were really, really quite confident that if it went to pens, they were going to put the ball there. This is what their warm-up was going to, their walk-up was going to be. As it came to it, and the manager ran onto the pitch and said, right, numbers 1 to 5, who's going? Those same few faces disappeared. They're gone. I looked around, there's no one there. So manager said, like, okay, boom. So I went third, right? I went third. Everyone had scored. Everyone scored apart from me, basically. I skied mine way up into Wembley Arch. So that was
JP, what are you thinking on the walk, like from the halfway line? What were you?
I tell you what, right? So when you remember things, right? They're like signals, aren't they? So when you remember something, it takes you back to how you felt when you went through it. So when you said that, imagine the walk, I got like a hot flush.
Right, yeah.
Right? So that walk from the halfway line to the penalty spot, it felt like I was walking across the Sahara Desert, mate. It was ridiculous. It's like, how am I not there yet? Like, I was crawling by the time I got there. Just because I didn't sleep well the night before. I was literally tossing and turning all night. I literally didn't get any sleep. I was so excited to be playing at Wembley in the final, and we might be getting promoted, that I think I'd eaten away at all of my carb stores that I'd you know what I mean? So I was knackered. I basically had cramp by the time it came to taking my pen, and I just tightened up. Remember Tiger Woods when he went through that bad patch with his golf swing? And he was just thinking about it too much, so he just kept hooking it and all kind. I think that's what I did. I just tightened up, and that mechanical movement that you're used to doing, I was thinking too much about it.
Yeah, sure.
And too worried about what if I miss, what's going to happen if I don't score, that I went ahead and fulfilled that prophecy.
Yeah.
I suppose, like you said, like nothing can prepare you for that walk, and nothing can prepare you for when you're stood over the ball, like just about to hit it. Like you could practice 1,000 penalties. It's completely different when you stood in front of that many people at Wembley doing it, isn't it?
Dan, we tried. You hit the nail on the head. We tried it. We put all the youth team, all the ladies from laundry, and all the ladies in the kitchen staff on the side of the pitch, and we tried to replicate it at the training ground, walking from the halfway line to the penalty spot. Where they were all booing, and you know, trying to make it as hostile for us as possible, just to give us a sense of what it might feel like. You can't replicate it, mate. It's such a unique thing that, yeah, it's just tough. You just got to be confident that you've practiced enough that it doesn't matter what the you know, external things are going around.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, good question.
I don't know. I don't know. If, you just be shitting it. I think because you think like, oh, I'll place it, and then you think, oh, if I place it, then it's going to be too soft, and the keeper will get there. So you think, oh, I hit it with a bit of power, and then you can end up like blazing it. It'd just be, oh, my head would be all over the place, I think.
Yeah, well, you played at Wembley, right? So
yeah,
it's big, isn't it?
Huge.
Right? So it's big, and then you fill it with people, and it feels even bigger. So what happens is, I think you got to get out your own way in penalties. You got to get out your own way. I was in my own way. So as well as the big goalie filling the goal, I had like 5 or 6 JPs that were also on the goal line saying, I don't think this is going in, mate. Like, you know what I mean? Get out your own way.
Do you like? Sorry, mate. Did you? Obviously, you're probably the most positive person I think I've ever met. Did you ever? How did you handle like pre-match nerves and stuff? Were you quite a confident person going into games, or were you nervous? Or
yeah, so I like big crowds.
Yeah, cool.
I like playing in front of tens of thousands of people. I like when it's on TV. So in my head, I'm thinking this is a perfect situation for me.
Yeah.
I love it. But actually, it was just totally different to anything I'd ever come across before. Did I get nervous? Yeah, a little bit nervous before games. But as soon as the referee blows the whistle for the start of the game, all the nerves just disappear.
Yeah.
Do you think that do you think the nerves are a good thing? I've always thought they were. Like it showed you cared and it kept you on point, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's different for everyone. I mean, I was in Italy when they won the World Cup, and I remember afterwards, Andrea Pirlo was talking about how he prepared for the World Cup final, and he stayed up to the early hours of the morning playing computer games, just because that's how nonchalant he was about it all. Whereas, you know, if that was me, then I think I probably would have been a bag of nerves. But everyone deals with these stressors differently, don't they?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I think nerves are a good thing. It's particularly, again, switch over to my rugby career, I suppose. You know, I nearly made it to the top level, and I always used to get nervous before games. You know, I used to get nervous nuggets. Felt like I needed a shit before every game. You know, and that was part of my nervous process. But I always felt like those nerves really spurred me on to exactly like you say, JP. When the whistle starts, when the game starts, you know, those nerves disappear very quickly, and you get fully engrossed in what you're doing ahead for the next 80 minutes or 90 minutes on a football field. So yeah, for me, nerves are good. I think if you don't have nerves, it can lead to a little bit of complacency at times.
Yeah.
You know, you see professionals that don't get nervous and they tell the whole world they'd never get nervous. Then they make a mistake in a game, or they have a moment where they really crumble, and then all of a sudden, well, you said you didn't get nervous. You say you didn't care about it, you weren't bothered, but actually, ultimately, I think it's completely humane and organic for everyone to get a little bit nervous time and time again.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, cool, lovely question, perfect. Let's move on. Okay, so my second question, JP, is what are the 3 things that you look for in an aspiring football professional? So thinking about your job now, I suppose, at Exeter, what 3 things do you mainly look for in a young talent?
Well, this is like the golden question that's existed as long as, you know, grassroots football has been around. You're trying to find that perfect mix of things that are going to help manifest a future footballer, right? So it's not actually 3 things, it's 4 things. So, you know, in a very vague way, because, you know, these umbrellas cover a lot of things, but you look at players socially. So you're looking at, you know, their home life, how they interact with other people, how they interact with people their own age, how they interact with adults, you know, the social corner. Then you're looking at their technical ability. You can't have all of that stuff without being able to control the ball and pass the ball and move the ball. Also, you're looking at their tactical nous. Do they know where to be on the pitch and when? like I was saying about Jose Font, do they read the game and almost know what's happening before it happens?
Yeah.
There's that, and then there's also the physical aspect. So many players' careers have been curtailed because they've been told they're not big enough, right? So, I mean, that's not happening as much anymore because we know now through measuring, players' wrists and things like that in modern football, how tall they might be come age 21 or whatever. So science has helped with that. But, Sean Wright Phillips almost didn't make it. What a player he was, just because he was small. So yeah, the physical corner, can they compete? Can they play up an age or two? That kind of thing. That's really important. Speed, strength, all of that kind of stuff is massive. So those 4 things.
Okay, cool. Where does psychology then fit underneath social?
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's like social and psychological marry up, don't they? Technical, tactical, and physical. So yeah, the social corner is kind of mixed up with the psychological corner.
Yeah, cool. It's interesting that you say that about that's kind of social psychological corner, because my nephew was at where was he? Huddersfield for a little while, and then he was at Peterborough for quite some time, but didn't make it. How old was he when he stopped going? 14. He was told that it was probably the end of the road because of his attitude and because of social dynamics at home. Things that were going on in his head that he just couldn't get a hold of and he couldn't control, and that was his downfall, to be fair, because tactically, his football awareness and knowledge of the game was up there, but he didn't make it because that corner was so hindered by his socio impacts and what have you. So it's really cool that you've mentioned that, because I didn't realize that it played such a big part in kind of that 4-corner map that you kind of describe is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so a perfect player ticks all of those boxes, right? But then sometimes some players sneak through the net where their social, psychological corner might be really poor, but the other 3 things are so good that you can't turn a blind eye to that. So you try and nurture the psychological aspect to help them through, because not everyone's going to have a perfect upbringing with we're not saying that's what we're looking for. We're just looking for somebody who is coachable enough to be able to develop those things.
A good example of that, would we agree, Ravel Morrison?
Yeah, he's exactly who I was thinking. Alex Ferguson gave him chance after chance after chance. He had to go abroad where he was maybe a little bit less known to try and establish himself, but never quite reached the pinnacle that he was probably technically capable of, because his social psychological corner is just not there.
It's mad, isn't it? Because I've seen people like interviewed about who came in through the youth team with Ravel Morrison, because Paul Pogba was in the same side, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And they all say like Ravel Morrison was streets ahead, like technically.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's quite sad, isn't it? Really, when you think about it.
The clubs than the guys had more clubs than I've had kebabs. You know what I mean?
No. But let's see, right?
Like you say, he's been all over the place.
Yeah, mate, he has it. You see it a lot.
Like Lazio, and in places like that, you think, everywhere. And I think,
mate.
Has he been at Sheffield United this past season?
That's where he is now, but
he's there now, I think.
People keep chucking him a lifeline, but I don't think it's quite clicked for him yet. But in the same breath, you might have like a Jordan Henderson, who, I'm not saying technically he's not good, but he's certainly not the best out there. But you can rely on him psychologically and socially, so much that you can kind of forgive the other bits.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. I suppose if you put them all out on a graph, no player, well, I mean, not many players would be 10 out of 10 on all of those 4 corners, would they? There'd always be something that they're stronger than others.
Yeah. Even Zidane, his psychological corner is probably not as great as it could be when he was playing. So a bit hot-headed.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, nice one. Right, Gaffer, back to you with your third question, my man.
Yeah, that kind of follows on a bit, to be fair. So, obviously, your position at the moment of coaching at Exeter City, and then thinking back to Villa, Forest and stuff, how do the academies differ from when you were coming through? And also, have you taken anything from the coaches that you played under back then into your own coaching now?
Yeah, absolutely. So back then you got to think mid 90s. It was just it was a different game then, wasn't it? Football was played differently. So especially in England, at Forest, we were one of the first teams to really go for this all-out possession football. This one of the first academies to really push that through, because that's what the first team did. And the coaches were a lot more militant with players, a lot less forgiving. There was a lot less empathy. We saw, only recently on the news, the amount of cases where players have come out saying they've been bullying and things like that. I think coaches were a lot more militant then than they are now. You wouldn't get coaches, saying things or doing the things now that they did then that was looked on as okay. And it was just ran a little bit more like a boot camp rather than a place to facilitate learning, which it is now. It's a lot more inclusive now. We've got a syllabus that is drip fed down from the FA. So obviously we want England to win a World Cup as soon as possible, don't we? So it helps if all the coaches across the academies are using the same language, the same narrative. So no matter where the player goes, they're going to be the message is going to be delivered maybe in a slightly different way, but it will still be the same message. And I think that's going to help all the grassroots players coming up as a whole. Whereas before, I went to Leicester for a little while on trial, and it was like a completely different world, the way they did things. So I don't know. I just feel like we're a little bit more inclusive these days.
Do you think that upbringing kind of thing stood you in good stead in your professional career, or do you think you would have benefited more from the approach now?
That's a tough one.
Yeah, that is a tough one. But like I said, I warned Aaron before. I was like, I could speak to JP for days. I'm just
have to do it in two parts. Yeah, mate. So basically, I had from 17 to 19, my youth coaches were like bulldogs. Yeah, they were hardcore. I remember at Forest, it was used to report to the stadium. That's where you got changed. You did your jobs, like pumped up the footballs, clean the footballs, wash the bibs, make sure that everywhere is spotless before you went down to the training ground. Yeah. And I remember, you graduate from 16 to 17, and you're now you're now thinking I'm top dog, but actually you've just gone from being the top of the schoolboys to now the bottom of the YTs. Yeah. So you come in, and the second and third years would say to you, "Oh, just come and join us in this room. We want to talk to you about the club rules, code of conduct, and all that kind of stuff." So all right, okay. So you go and sit down in there, and they line you all up, and then the lights go off, and you're like, "What the hell's going on here?" And then next thing, you're just getting pelted with boots, boot brushes, water bottles, broomsticks. Everything's just flying at you. People are coming out absolutely battered. And the corridor, which was usually like a hive of activity, full of coaches and different first team staff, for some reason, for half an hour or so, it was like a ghost town. There was no one there, right? Whilst you got taught a lesson by the older ones. And then basically that was your initiation. That was them saying, like, we're in charge now. Like, you've got a long way to go before you've come anywhere near the first team. So, kind of just wind your neck in a bit. Yeah. That would never happen now. Never happen.
So what was the interaction like between first teamers and the academy ranks? So nowadays you see a lot of first team footballers getting involved with the academies, visiting the young players, doing little educational sessions with them and training sessions. Did that exist, or was it like first team, the powers of above, you don't see that until you make it there?
That depends where you are. So for instance, at Exeter, it's good. We all share the same training ground, the first team and all the way down to the under 9s. We all share that. So you will come across other first teamers and stuff. There's always been training sessions that have been, taken by first teamers and stuff like that, just as part of your role, really. But yeah, it's so going back to the Villa days. again, we shared Bodymore with the first team, and I remember I'd broken my leg, so I was doing my rehabilitation, and I had Stan Collymore on one side and Mark Bosnich on the other side, on all on bikes.
Oh,
and we were just having a conversation as if we were all mates, kind of thing. And I know that it's like that still at some places, but at maybe Man City, for instance, there's definitely a divide between first team and the rest of the academy. Just because I think at that level, you just got to keep everything as in-house as possible.
Yeah.
But MB, I didn't really answer your question. You said, did it help me or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely made me more resilient and more robust. Nobody gave you an arm around the shoulder. Nobody would ever say, JP, are you all right? You never ever got that. So my coping mechanisms developed because I didn't have anyone to turn to. I had to try and come up with a way myself. That aided me. It was to the detriment of a lot of my other teammates because they needed someone. They needed a shoulder to cry on, and there wasn't one. Whereas now you've got somebody within the club that is their sole role. They get a salary just for player welfare, just to make sure that everyone's okay. And who's to say I might have had a better career if I'd had that help. I don't know.
Like I said, like you're one of the you're probably the most positive person I've ever met. So that grounding can't have. Well, I don't know. It's hard, isn't it?
I think
I'm all right. Do you know what I mean?
Knowing you how we know you, JP, as a friend and as a professional doing what you do, particularly in football, you are the most empathetic and understanding and put the arm around your shoulder kind of coach, kind of guy. So the fact that you never had that as a kid, and yet now as a coach and as an instructor, you are like that. It was probably always in you, but you just learned not to utilize it. Is that maybe the case then? Because you can't just become a friendly giant like you are. You always are that person somewhere.
Yeah, I think you're right. So when I did my B license, they talk about your philosophy. What is your philosophy going to be when you become this great coach? And for me, it was centered around facilitating some change in the game, right? So just because I didn't get an arm around me and spoken to in a nice way doesn't mean that I have to then keep that cycle going and do that for the next generation. Let's change some aspects about it, because I'm in the great position now. I get to change the way things are done. So that's my MO basically.
Yeah, awesome, lovely, sweet. All right, Dan, your last question, buddy.
My last question, JP. Which promotion was better? The promotion to League One with Wycombe in 2011, I think it was, or the promotion with Grimsby in 2016, 2015, 2016? Was that the year after the penalty miss, maybe?
Yeah, it was, mate. So they were both good. When I left, see, the thing with Q&As with me, I can never just answer the question. I have to go back like 5 years.
That's why we love it.
Right. So basically, if you think I was at Forest for 8 years, I then left Forest and gave it another bash in League One with Doncaster Rovers. It didn't go to plan. I didn't get the game time I wanted. So I made the decision to drop down a couple of leagues into the conference to try and establish a name for myself, right? So I did that. I scored a bag load of goals at Crawley and was in the team of the week most weeks, and then got bought by Wycombe. So then my plan had worked. We got promoted back into League One, where I left Forest, where I was determined that I would get back to. So that felt super sweet, because it was almost like, because I had a few doubters saying, "Oh, what are you doing? Non-league football, you might not recover from me. We might never see you again." And I just believed in myself. So that felt super sweet, because I had a plan, and it took a few years, but I got there. So that was great. And we did it in style as well. I think we only lost 8 games all season, conceded like 33 goals, less than anyone else in the league. Like, we got automatic promotion. We were cruising. But then, like you said about the Grimsby one, now just to start the story of another story, I had left Oxford, and I was expecting the phone to be blowing up over the summer. Come to me. The phone didn't ring. I went on holiday to Cyprus, and I had my phone right next to me on my sun lounger, thinking, someone's going to call any minute now. Nothing. So then, panic stations, absolute panic stations. I went back to Wickham. They say you should never go back to a club you've been at.
Yeah.
I went back to Wickham. I had a terrible season full of injuries and another summer full of no one phoning me. I went round the houses on trial, ended up at Grimsby. I'd never even set foot in Grimsby before, didn't know what to expect. But they were a great bunch of lads, and I was taken in by the sense of the communities. They had this pain body about the fact that they got relegated out of the Football League and hadn't managed to bounce back straight away. So they tried for, I think, 5 or 6 years before the year I got there to get promoted, and always falling at the last hurdle. So I missed the penalty, didn't I? So we'd fall another hurdle, and then I was like, oh my God. Then 12 months later, we did it in style. Second time at Wembley, and managed to get promoted. It was great. So I've got to say the Grimsby one, just because I had to go through such hardship to finally get that success, that it just made it even more sweet.
How did you find we spoke about this before in the gym, but how did you find the difference between non-league and Football League? The standard and
the
this treatment you got from defenders as well.
I probably sound quite cynical now, but I think the standard of football in the league was better back then.
Yeah.
I think players were just different. They were like men, There's an under-23s thing now, which is great because it helps players, make that jump from being, just a squad player into first team football. We didn't have that then. If by 19, certainly by 20, if you weren't ready for first team football, then you didn't have a career. Yeah, you had no choice but to maybe drop out of the Football League. But the main difference was just that the game is a lot slower the higher up you go, up until the last third. So it's really slow, all about possession, moving the team side to side, looking for a little bit of indiscipline where you can just go and penetrate through some gaps. As soon as that ball gets into the final third, it's like fast forward switch had been hit and everything just goes bang, 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 goal. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas in non-league, it's like that all the way through the thirds,
Yeah, sure. I think and again, we said it, I think that there's more money, isn't there, in the National League now? So I think it was a couple of years ago when Eastleigh took Constable from Oxford, paid quite good money, and at the time I think he was the top scorer in League One or League Two, and they plucked him out and took him into non-league because of the money.
Yeah.
So you think that the standard there is rising, whereas there's almost like a vacuum in League Two now, I think.
Yeah.
Especially towards the bottom, where sometimes you might be down there and struggle year after year, and you might think, do you know what? If we went into the National League, TV money and stuff, it might actually be better for us.
Yeah.
It's really quite strange, but I think
Salford did that, didn't they?
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Went ape with signings. They signed
Rooney, didn't they?
like $500,000 almost. Like unbelievable signings they made.
Yeah. I've been part of it myself. When we got promoted with Grimsby, I had what's called. Have you ever seen that picture? There's a couple. If you haven't seen the one of Hernan Crespo, looking at his Premiership medal after Chelsea won the league, then there's one of, I think, Kobe Bryant staring at his trophy, and they've both got this sense of they're just vacant. And I think it's because when you've worked tirelessly day in, day out for something, and then you actually achieve it, you get this lull where you're like, oh, what now sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I had that feeling, times 10 after the Wembley victory. And after that, I didn't want to go somewhere mediocre and just finish mid-table. I didn't want to go somewhere that was scrapping for to stay in the league. So I took the decision to drop into the Conference North. So I went backwards when all my mates went forwards, and I went to Harrogate Town because they had a great infrastructure. They just missed out on promotion the year before. They're chucking cash around. It's a beautiful part of the world as well. And I wanted to go there and get more success. I wanted that winning feeling again. It went really well for the first half of the season and then hit a tragic end. But I went there on the pretext that it was going to be another Grimsby, another I'm going to embody this community, and I'm going to carry this team forward to get the victories that they've longed for.
Yeah, Harrogate's such a great town.
It is. Yeah.
Obviously I used to live in York. My brother lives in Harrogate now with his wife, and I was the fitness coach with Harrogate Railway for 3 years, and absolutely loved my time there. It was such a lovely place to play football and to do stuff around that area. It's ace.
Yeah. It's a shame. It's a shame how it ended at Harrogate, but I had a great time while I was there.
Yeah, good. Lots of money in that place as well.
Yeah, well, you have to have lots of money, otherwise you're not welcome.
Good, lovely. Okay, cool. So my last question. So this is the last one before we move on to just a few of the ones that have come through on the Instagram.
Yeah.
So having played under several managers, who did you form the best relationship with and why?
Oh man, another great one. See, anyone that's had a manager, right, you'll know that they're all different, and there's all things that bug you about them, and there's all things that you really think's incredible about them. So, if I could mix up all of my managers and take the best bits, that would be one great guy. They all kind of added something different. If I go through the list, obviously Gary Megson gave me my debut, so I hold him in high regard. Martin Scott gave me some regular football when I went on loan to Hartlepool. He was a great guy. Gary Waddock, when I got injured. Hey, when I got injured, and as I said, I was close to the club. The club were going to get some money for me because I was going to Charlton, or maybe even Millwall. But basically, they said we'll stick by you. And Gary Waddock, phoned me every day whilst I was injured, even if it was just to say, what are you having for tea tonight? He phoned me every single day, so that I'll never forget that. That was some top management there, because it would have been easier to just forget about me or get his assistant to phone me or the physio, but he called me every day, and I appreciate that. Yeah. Paul Hurst gave me a lot of responsibility in the team at Grimsby. I wasn't one of the more senior ones. I was only 27, but he made me feel like I was the boss beside him.
Yeah.
They're all great. Steve Evans. Yeah, Steve Evans was...
I was going to ask you about Steve Evans.
Bloody hell, Steve Evans. We could do an hour-long podcast just talking about Steve Evans.
We need to do that. We need to do that.
Yeah.
We'll call the next episode Steve Evans.
Seriously. So, for those who don't know Steve Evans, he grew up in the same part of Glasgow as Alex Ferguson, and he's a steely character. At half-time, he used to shout at you that far away from your nose, red as a tomato, spitting all over your face. But for some reason, it worked. I don't know how. It worked. So he was great. And Kevin Nicholson, towards the end of my career, helped me massively jump from where I was to where I am now.
Big hand for Kev, good boy.
I don't know. I can't answer that. I can't answer that one definitively, because Peter Taylor was great as well. So I couldn't pick one. I couldn't possibly pick one.
That's cool. So just a nice mixture of all of them then, really.
Yeah.
JP, is that your ambition now going forward to become a manager?
I don't know.
Are you happy with the coaching side?
I like being in my boots on the grass with the players, talking football, moving people around, showing people scenarios, and I like that element of it. I don't feel like a suit who would be observing from the side and tinkering with stuff like that. I would much prefer to be an assistant manager who the players can trust, and you can bridge a gap between the captain and the manager, or the players and you're there with them. You're not a player. You are still a coach, but you still getting the banter, going in the dressing room with the lads and all that kind of stuff. I think I would like that more than being the guy on the sideline.
Yeah. Just on the back of that, JP, just like Matty's question, do you struggle? Do you struggle at times now with that? I am a coach and I'm not a player, because if it hadn't have been for your injury a few years back, well, however long back it wasn't that long ago. I know you went through a real transition in your life when that all happened. and you may still be playing now, perhaps not at the same level, but you may still be playing. So do you struggle with that, or have you come to terms with it and accepted that you're now in that coaching and you're not the player that you could be? Do you know what I mean? That makes sense.
I know exactly what you mean. I did struggle at first, because you feel like, why me? I've had my career taken away from me through no fault of my own. Why me? And you go through I certainly went through all the different emotions and feelings and embraced them. If I didn't want to speak to anyone for a week, I didn't speak to anyone for a week. If I was phoning 5 people a day because I just had so much I wanted to get out, then I did that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I went through that kind of almost grieving process, because now I don't miss football. I don't feel resentment towards anyone or anything. I am where I am now, and just looking forward, I still get to go and be involved in the industry that I love. So, that's a massive positive. And if I'm honest with myself, I wasn't really enjoying football as much as I'd have liked towards the end.
No.
Because I'm dealing with a lot of politics and a lot of things that aren't football, that aren't why you get into football.
Yeah.
These are things that come around later that you don't know. And I didn't, so I stopped enjoying elements of being a footballer anyway.
It was a weird time, wasn't it, at Torquay?
Yeah.
We won't go into it too much because I know you weren't too happy, but yeah, there was a strange time at Torquay. It's a shame you didn't. It's a shame you didn't come there maybe a year or two later.
Yeah, maybe.
Do you know what I mean? And
maybe
I've known from people who were in the camp at the time that it wasn't a particularly happy time.
No, it wasn't great, but I wouldn't change it because I'm delighted with where I am now. So it would have been nice to have had some wins and hear the fans leaving the ground happy and walking around Tesco, not having to have your hood like that so no one recognises you. You know what I mean? That would have been nice, but I played 400 games, guys, so I had plenty of highs and plenty of lows, and you just learn to balance it out,
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I think just going back to just what you said there, and the whole kind of the last 50 minutes, that Dan's first question on who your idol would be when you were growing up, I think I would encourage as many young people who get the chance to know who you are and to follow you, for you to be their idol, because I know just what you say and your approach to the game is so inspiring. So big hand to that, mate. I think that's class, and luckily all three of us, we get to be your friends, which is great. But young people definitely have a lot to look up to you in, I think. Would you agree, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Cheers, boy.
And I kind of do. I still get a bit jittery when I see you in the gym, mate. That's because I've played Football Manager my whole life, and I used to love the lower leagues and stuff and looking out for the pennies. I used to sign you every time, and I'll be honest with you, mate, it was because you look cool. In the little picture in the corner, you just look really cool. So I was like,
yeah. It's weird, isn't it? I think the first conversation I ever had with JP was, I used to buy you on Championship Manager.
Like Aaron said, your outlook and stuff, I could talk to you for hours. It's really positive. Yeah, really.
Luckily for us, we get more than just 50 minutes on a podcast, so that's
it.
Cheers, boys.
So I don't know where Dan's gone, bless him, but we'll just crack on with the last few.
I'm here. I really needed a wee, so I've just had to turn the camera off.
Love it, Dan.
Cool. Okay, so these are ones that have come in on.
Bloody hell.
So these
Sorry about that. Nearly flush you away.
So these have come through on the post. So just quick, as we've only got kind of 3-4 minutes left. So just kind of do some 1 sentence, 2 sentence answers, really, mate. So this one's from Brooksy, Tom Brooks, our keeper. What's your perfect Sunday, JP?
Perfect Sunday? Lying, for the start. So basically, probably get dragged around the shops. That's not. I like it, so I'm not even saying that that's a bad thing. Super Sunday, a roast dinner, and maybe if I'm not got an early the next day, a glass of red.
Nice, perfect, love it, Russ. Okay, this one's from the skipper Ryan Wheeler, but under his new golfer size account. Get a little bit of little bit of publicity there for him. What's your most memorable goal, JP, in your career?
Most memorable goal. I got goal of the season at Wickham for a goal I scored against Bristol Rovers. That was a good finish. But there's been loads, to be fair. Like, there's been loads of important ones. So I'll say that one because it got an award. But there's been so many that I've thought have been good.
Cool. Quickly describe the goal. Where were you? How did it look?
Quickly, you're asking me quickly. Right. So the ball's out on the right-hand side. We're in the final third. It's out on the touchline. Stuart Bevan pulls it back. I'm just outside the D, and I've got my back to goal. I let the ball go across my body, so I kind of sold the defender with a step, and then swiveled and just smashed it into the top corner.
Beautiful.
I'd love to be able to find it, but I can't find any of my goals because they didn't record anything back then.
JP, do you find that you can remember like your goals, all of them?
Oh yeah, mate.
Yeah, yeah, I love that.
All of them.
Brilliant.
Cool. And the last one then, mate. This one's from Lloyd. Opinions on what should happen with this season's Premier League amidst the COVID crisis?
See, here's the thing. Opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got one. So I think it's a tough one because I don't know all the stats regarding the club's financial situations. Don't know the stats regarding the virus. All I know is what gets put on, mainstream media. So I don't think I could sit here and say we should do this, we should do that. The main thing, obviously, is that we get through it with as little destruction, economically, and in the health sector. And then that's the main thing. And the football we can resume whenever, because what if we finish the season in October, for instance? Well, that's all right then, isn't it? Because then that will gear us up for the World Cup. So I don't think you need to worry about finishing the season and this, that, and the other, or cancelling the season, unless it's going to have a massive effect on everyone financially. Then just try and leave it as long as possible. But I know that people's jobs are at stake all over in lots of different sectors. So I don't know, Lloyd. Good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. I think it's one that we discussed briefly on our first podcast. And again, could have spoken way much on it, I suppose. But things have changed since we had that discussion. So in 4 weeks, a lot of things have changed. I think it's nice to have the perspective from Dan and Matt, kind of that grassroots local county football level and what's going on there. Because for them, it's all been finished, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I think that the top levels hasn't yet.
Yeah, they're hanging on.
I think, like from my perspective, there's what I want to happen and what I think probably will happen. I obviously want it to be finished because I'm a Liverpool fan and we're like 3,200 points clear at the top of the league or whatever it is. And I obviously want it finished because you'll have like Man United fans and all the other jealous sods who wish they were in our position, but saying that, it's not a proper title because you've only played 29 games or whatever. Although we've still got more points than their 99 treble team got in the season, but that's a different matter. But what I think probably will happen, I can't see like it it's meant to be starting in 4 or 5 weeks' time. I can't see in 4 or 5 weeks you're going to have a testing system in place where they're testing players and staff and people like that twice a week. You've got like teams meant to be in isolation in like hotels and stuff, unless there is a lot of work going on behind closed doors that hasn't come out, and they are working on it now and they have got all the venues and stuff sorted, but we don't know about it. That could well be the case, but from what has been on the news and what we've read and what we've heard, and usually this kind of stuff gets leaked, doesn't it? I can't see it. I really can't see it happening. And I think as UEFA said, they want everything done by the end of July. I mean, there's still sort of like that's 3 months away, isn't it? But I can't see it happening in June. So we just have to wait and see. I think probably it will just be curtailed and Liverpool will end up getting the title. No one will go down, I don't think. Yeah. And then maybe Leeds and West Brom will come up, but I don't know. There's the argument that if Leeds and West Brom came up, then the Premier League would have they'd have the same pot of prize money as they do this season, but they've got to share it out next season over
more clubs,
more teams. Yeah, so it is a mess, isn't it? But we've got to do the best. The best thing we can do is just look after the people and try and do the thing that's safest, without the industry collapsing.
Agreed. Yeah, cool, lovely. All right, then, boys. Well, we have absolutely been on time, so we've got like 25 seconds left just to finish this one off. So, amazing. Thanks very much for joining us, JP. I know I speak for all three of us to say it's been freaking mint having you on, and I'm sure people will like to tune in and listen to all of the stuff that we've done today and your answers to all of those questions. So, thanks for taking the time to join us, brother. It's been good having you on. Thanks, Gaffer. Thanks, Sec. And we'll be back again in a week's time with another one next week, with another something slightly different again for you. Stay safe, stay at home, and don't be dicks.